The big lesson that you learn from doing hard things, this is why the Stoics talk about challenging yourself, is that you learn what you're capable of. A little over a year ago, my wife and I had the craziest idea we've ever had in our lives. I'm Ryan Holiday with my wife, Samantha. We opened this little bookstore on Main Street here in Bastrop, Texas. It's called The Painted Porch, which is actually named after the place where Stoicism was founded, the Stoa Poikile, the Painted Porch, in the Agora in Athens. Now, this was crazy in a bunch of ways, and then it got even crazier when a pandemic happened and threw all those plans, especially running a small retail business, into complete disarray. There were moments, of course, when we thought the Painted Porch would never open, when we thought life would never go back to normal. There were so many days that we doubted it, but you don't quit just because something's hard. And in fact, when something's hard, that's really where the opportunities are, where the opportunity for growth is. And here we are celebrating our first year in business. We've learned a lot. We've made a ton of mistakes. We've had to actually apply Stoicism day to day. And in this video, I'm going to show you some things that I've learned in the process. It always takes longer than you think it's going to take. That's Hofstadter's law. We had this idea to open the bookstore in the fall of 2019. We got really serious about it in the late winter, early spring of 2020. And we thought maybe we'd be ready by the summer of 2020. And then there was a pandemic, and that pushed us a full year. Then it took many, many months to get up and running. And then every time we thought the pandemic was over and things were about to go back to normal, it never went back to normal. And the idea is, if you think starting a business, doing anything is going to be easy, that it's going to be straightforward, that it's going to be clean, like, you're fooling yourself. It always takes longer than you think it's going to take. One of the things you learn doing a business like this, doing anything, is that you have to be really patient. It's going to take so much longer than you think it's going to take. And if you're rushed, if you expect it now, if you can't pass the marshmallow test of delaying gratification and deferring things into the future, you're just going to get crushed. There's this great Hemingway line. We actually have a shirt of it I love, and I have a print of it on my wall. It's one of my favorite all-time quotes. Hemingway said, "The first draft of everything is shit." I'd never done something like this. I love how it is now, but this wasn't how it was a week in, 2 weeks in, 6 months in, a year in. It wasn't how it was when we opened. It's been a continual process of improvement and growth and making changes. So you have to be comfortable starting small. And the problem is, when you have really high standards, when you expect a lot of yourself, it's hard to get comfortable with something that's kind of crappy or mediocre or not all the way there. So when we say the first draft of everything is shit, and I love the print and I love the shirt, and you can check it out. We sell them here at the store, of course. Don't demand perfection of yourself early on. Give yourself the permission to experiment, to try. It's not perfect the first go around. No business is everything it could or should be on opening day. You have to be comfortable getting better as you go. So I don't agree when people say money is the root of all evil, but money can be a distraction. It's not usually the best way to measure success. So like when we did this bookstore, The Painted Porch, right? It was obviously not to make lots of money, because there are so many better, easier, cheaper ways to make money in this life. So you have to understand how you're gonna measure the success of what you do. And almost always, money is not that thing. If this makes no money, if it loses obscene amounts of money, it goes out of business. We can't continue to exist. Profit is fuel. It's what makes the car go. But it's really important that you think about how you're going to measure what you're doing. We wanted to think about impact. We wanted to think about whether it improves our lives, whether we have fun doing it, whether we help bring books into the world, whether we make this community better. You have to be careful that money doesn't creep in and corrupt or distract you from what you're trying to do, or how you should be trying to measure success. There's never going to be a shortage of reasons why you can't do something, why it's too expensive, why it's too hard. So one of the things I did while I was kicking this around is I looked up like how expensive is it to start a bookstore. It was like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, like way more expensive than I could possibly afford. But then I wanted to question whether that number was real. So what I did was I went and I looked at how expensive it was to start like an e-commerce business, like what Daily Stoic is. And they said it was hundreds of thousands of dollars more than I'd spent to start that business. And that was really helpful. It's like, oh, these people don't really know what they're talking about. Or that there's a different way to do it. You don't have to do it the way that everyone else does it. So when you get criticism, when you get information, when you get facts, and of course you have to look for those things. But you also have to take them with a grain of salt. You have to really look at them. You have to put them up to the test, as the Stoics say, to find out which ones are real, which ones are counterfeit, which ones you can trust, and which ones you realize are not fully accurate. So that was really, really important. It was questioning some of those assumptions, the facts on the ground, and getting to the real core of how it was. And it turned out it was still very expensive to start, but it wasn't as expensive as those people said it was, and it actually was doable for us to do it. When I was thinking about opening my bookstore, I asked Tim Ferriss, I said, is this something I should do? Am I crazy? Am I gonna lose all my money? Is it gonna blow up my life? I really wanna do it, but I'm not sure. And he said, think about it as an experiment. He said, how are you gonna know if it's something you wanna do if you haven't tried doing it? And so the decision to see it as an experiment, not as a permanent forever life choice, was so freeing because it allowed me to go into it knowing, okay, for the next 2 years, this is something I'm committed to, but I can change my mind after that. And so this idea of seeing everything as an experiment is totally life-changing, and it's what made doing this bookstore possible. People talk about like trusting their gut or whatever, but that's something you have to earn. I talk about this in Ego is the Enemy. Like there's a difference between confidence and ego. Ego thinks like, whatever I want to do, of course I'm going to be successful, I'm great. Confidence is something you earn, something you earn over time. It's something you earn by having an idea, bringing it into reality, learning what you're capable of, learning what's possible, learning why you do deserve to trust yourself. On the other side of this, having done this scary thing, having done a thing that a lot of people said it wasn't a good idea, you're like, oh, I can do this. I'm capable of this. Seneca says, like, I pity the person who's never gone through adversity, who's never done anything difficult, because they don't know what they're capable of. The greatest wealth that comes out of this experience is that trust and that confidence and that sense of what I'm capable of. When I first started my reading list newsletter, this would have been 2008, 2009, the idea was that I wanted to celebrate other people's works because I didn't have any of my own books. I thought maybe that by celebrating other people's works, by saying this is a book that will change your life, this is an amazing book, I could build a relationship with people that later, years in the future, if I ever did any of my own books, they would know that I have good taste or judgment, that I could buy myself from them by putting out value into the world, eventually earn the trust or the respect that when I came out with one of my own books, they would at least know that I know what a good book is. To me, the bookstore is an extension of the idea of celebrating other people's work. And when you do that, when you create value for people, when you celebrate other people's work, when you're generally a positive force in your industry, in your space, you develop a reputation. People want to support you, people want to help you. And so now when I say, hey, buy this book from the Painted Porch, people have been buying books that I've been recommending for 10 years. They trust me. The world is not zero sum. The more you help others, the more you help yourself. This is a note I wrote to myself when we were opening the bookstore in the middle of the pandemic. I said, 2020 is a test. Will it make you a better person or a worse person? If it makes you worse, if it stresses you out, if it tears your relationship apart, if it makes you bitter or frustrated with people, then it doesn't matter how successful it is, it's not successful. I just wanted to think about as I was going through it, like, what does success look like? And we just decided that success was going to be becoming more community-minded, becoming more responsible, becoming better organized, having more fun, like making a positive contribution. We didn't want to contribute to the problem, we wanted to contribute to the solution. That's community, that's public health, that's all that stuff. If you succeed, but it comes at the cost of happiness or other important things in life, it's not success. So that was just something I thought about. That was the test that I wanted to remind myself of over and over again. Will this make you a better person or a worse person? If it makes you a worse person, what's the point? It would be wonderful, of course, if marketing didn't have to exist, if things could be bare boned, if presentation didn't matter. That's just not how life works. Never has, and it never will be. And that was something we thought a lot about at the Painted Porch, and I think one of the best decisions we made, and it's a lesson for me, we put up this book tower. This is 2,000 books, it's 20 feet tall, it weighs 2,000 pounds, it's 4,000 nails and 40 gallons of glue. It was this whole creation. It's like an art piece, but it's the number one thing that people come into the store and take pictures of. People want experiences, right? If they just wanted price, if they just wanted ease, they'd buy online. It was not cheap to do, I'll tell you, it was hard, it took forever. We had to solve all sorts of logistical problems to make it work, but it's also probably one of the single best marketing and business decisions we made in the whole store. Do interesting stuff, do stuff that commands attention. How you make it stand out, how you draw attention like a magnet, it cannot be underestimated. There's a great line from Peter Thiel. He says, competition is for losers. The point being, when you're doing something, you can kind of see how everyone else is doing it. You can see how it's supposed to be done. And there's a safety and a security in that because it's a well-trod path. But that's not really where success comes from. When you want to succeed at something, you have to find a way to differentiate yourself. You have to find a way to do it in a way that no one else is doing it, the way that only you can do it. The big decision on the bookstore, it's a lesson that I've learned over and over again, but it was really codified here, was I didn't want to be like every other bookstore. Most bookstores have thousands and thousands of books, between 10 and 15,000 books. But what we decided here was we'd have a couple hundred books, only my absolute favorite books, the books that I put in my reading list email, which I've sent out for a decade now. It would only be those books. I think the lesson over and over again is don't compete with other people, do your own thing, right? You don't need to be first. You want to be the only. You want to be the only one doing it. You want to have a unique proposition. You want to have something that only you could do. And that's what makes you stand out. That's what makes you special. A lot of people don't know that Stoicism was actually founded in a bookstore. Zeno, he's a successful merchant, he suffers a shipwreck, he loses everything, and he washes up in Athens completely penniless. And he ends up in a bookstore, and there in that bookstore, he hears the bookseller reading the works of Socrates. And it's there he falls in love with philosophy, he falls in love with the idea of this sort of philosophical mentor that was Socrates, and he goes up to the bookseller and he says, hey, where can I find a man like that? And the bookseller says, well, look right there. And there was a philosopher walking by named Crates. And this becomes Zeno's mentor. And shortly thereafter, Zeno founds his own philosophical school, which becomes Stoicism. Stoa Poikile in Athens is where he founds Stoicism. That's the name of my bookstore, The Painted Porch. He realized in that bookstore, hearing the works of Socrates, that a bookstore was a place to talk to the dead. So many of the authors in this bookstore are dead. Look, here's the Aeneid. Right, this is a 2,000-year-old book. Here's Epictetus, a 2,000-year-old book. Here's the Odyssey. We don't even know how old this is, right? But you can talk to those authors as if they're still alive. And I think the real lesson from opening a bookstore, the power of books to me, remains that idea that Zeno got 2,500 years ago. The idea that through conversations with the dead, talking to the wisest people who ever lived, who are no longer with us, but survive to us in the form of books. That is the secret to wisdom. That's the wonderful thing. And over again, even when things were really hard, I just turned to books, which I loved. I continue to have those conversations with the dead. To me, that's what makes bookstores so powerful. You might notice I'm not at the bookstore for this one, and that's because the bookstore is closed. All our employees are out sick. We're not able to be open. Is it going to be 5 days of being closed? Is it 10 days of being closed? How much money is it going to cost? I don't know. I know that there wasn't anything we could have done to avoid this. We were immensely safe. We took every precaution. We were controversial at how many precautions and protections we put in place. My conscience is clear, but that doesn't change the fact that it affects the business. But this is life, right? In The Obstacles Way, I quote this Haitian proverb that I like, that behind mountains, there are more mountains. That's just how life is. You don't overcome one obstacle. You don't get through the first year of your business and then you're magically done with obstacles. That's not how life works. Life is one obstacle after another. You have to keep going. And that's what we're gonna do. We're not judging the success of this business purely in dollars and cents. What matters to me is, are the employees okay? What matters is, are we doing the right thing? Are we acting in accordance with our values? Are we doing what's right for the community? So we'll have to endure this. We'll have to eat this. And that's just life. That's just business. We'll take it day by day. We'll get through this. We won't be deterred by it. We continue to do the right thing, which is all a person and a business and a Stoic can do. I read a ton. Basically, reading is my job. And every month I send out one email of the best books I read that month, books I know you'll love, that I stand behind. You can sign up totally for free at ryanholiday.net/reading list.